Hello and welcome back to another episode of Skeptic Takeout. I've got my very, very, very good friend, Josh Entner, co-host and co-founder of the Bloody Good Film podcast. I want to let Josh tell you a little bit about what he does, so take it away.
Well, I do the Bloody Good Film podcast. It's a podcast that studies action and horror movies. We go for the obscure, we go for the new, we go for just anything that has violence in it. And we've had Richard on to talk about the stupidity of Exorcism of Emily Rose. We talked about the bad arguments on that, which actually had what this movie should have done. And it had Christians and atheists half write the script so that they can do their own arguments for their own side. And in that, the Christian side looked fucking abysmal, but they wrote their abysmal side. We've had on for They Live, and we just talk about movies. It's more of a comedy podcast. Sometimes we go off topic, but it's always fun. It's just I'm kind of trying to recreate the atmosphere there. This is the kind of conversation that we want to have after you just stepped out of a movie theater and you're just like having a beer with some friends talking over movies. That's what we're trying to do. So it's a fun podcast. It's a little bit more lighthearted than this, although we've occasionally come across transphobia, bigotry, and like all kinds of shit in some of the older movies that we're seeing. We call them out, but for the most part, it's a fun podcast.
Yeah, it's a great podcast. And just a reminder that if you haven't done also already, as well as going and checking out Josh's podcast, go and check out Towhead, who do my fantastic theme music. Their link will be in their link tree will be in the description below. Go and check them out. They're a fantastic band. They're local to me. I'm friends with their drummer. Very, very good band. Go and listen to them. So last time, Josh, we talked about God's Not Dead with Kevin Sorbo of Hercules fame. Today, we're going to talk about another Christian film, which is a completely different beast. Left Behind. Tell us why you chose this film to talk about.
Well, I wanted to come about the Christian movies from the two that I've heard about the most. There's the apologetic side with God's Not Dead, and then there's the fear-mongering side with Left Behind. And I actually have some Christian friends that I talked to when I told them I actually read the book. There's 16 books, 40 novellas for teens in this. It's a huge fucking series. But I talked to some of my Christian friends or former Christian friends, they're now atheists, about this. And they said like these movies scared the hell out of them because of it very much is you got to believe in the exact right kind of way, or else you're going to get left behind. You're going to have to go deal with the Antichrist and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of wanted to see this is for you and me who never really believed in this shit. It's hard to classify this movie, but for everybody else, or for the Christians, this is kind of a horror movie because they're afraid that this could actually happen to them. It's more of a horror movie for people that are questioning their faith than for people that are like really devout and think that they got it right. And there are a bunch of those kinds of theists that think that they know exactly how they're believing, but there's enough people that have questioning, and this is supposed to make you feel bad about your questioning.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that because it's worth pointing out that because this is an easy film to laugh at, before you kind of dive into this, there are a lot of horror films which have scared people who don't believe in God, that are based on kind of the devil and the Bible and things like that. And you don't necessarily have to be religious and believe it to be scared by things. But when you do believe it, when you do believe it's true, that fear is magnified. So I can understand that, even though I'm like you, I've never actually believed myself. But I can understand where that genuine fear comes from with this.
Well, it's you can even believe and be scared in this movie because you could think that you're not believing the right way. Because there's a pastor in this movie who kind of believed, but he didn't believe in exactly the right terms in order for him to get saved. So like there's fear in there. Like one of my favorite horror movies is The Exorcist, and that was built to William Peter Blatty, the author of the book, was Christian, and he made that book as like a way of scaring people into the church. The difference between this and Left Behind is The Exorcist was actually very well written. I don't give a shit that it was kind of Christian propaganda because I fucking love the book. I love the movie. This isn't that. This is not on exorcism scale. This is just really boring garbage. And I read the book, and the book is actually worse. I wanted to get a feel for it, because if there's a book or a comic adaptation from the movie on my podcast, I try to read it ahead of time if I can. And this one, we talked about this like 2 months ago, so there's no reason why I couldn't get this book in. And there's things that happen in the book that aren't quite addressed. Well, like Rayford Steele is more the main character in the book than Kirk Cameron's character is from the movie. It's very much some weird some weird things happen in the book that don't happen in the movie that I feel like need to be brought up. Everybody should know Left Behind is the rapture happens, and all the very devout people are taken to heaven, and everybody else is left behind. So you're caught up on the story. But like kids, I don't know the exact cutoff range. They don't really give it in the movie or the book, but children are all automatically raptured. There's even a scene in the book, which I wish had happened in the movie because it made me laugh so hard when it happened in the book. A woman's giving birth, and then the baby just gets raptured, and like in my head, she just queefed really hard, like from the gas coming out, or the room get take out from there. But I was trying to figure out, is there a cutoff range for when the fetus gets raptured, or is it like some Christians like to say that birth happens at conception, or life begins at conception? So are there like little zygotes up in heaven right now because they got raptured as soon as the sperm touched the egg? I'm really kind of like trying to figure out how this whole idea exactly works. You end up with some weird funny things in their mind. Like there's a woman, Planned Parenthood, apparently all they do is abortions, and there's a woman character who she's only in it for like one scene. They kind of, it's more referenced by the stewardess character Hattie. She's talking about one of her friends is upset because she worked at Planned Parenthood, and now she has nothing to do now that she can't do abortions anymore, because apparently that's all Planned Parenthood did was abortions. And it's just like a sad woman that she can't abort anymore. It's very much it's weird Christian propaganda. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Just like
no, ramble, please ramble.
There's so much weird shit that happens in the book that was left out of the movie, but it was the funny stuff that was left out of the movie, because all the abortion shit, it's so far into like Christian propaganda that becomes hilarious in the best possible way. Like I wanted the birthing scene so bad. I really wanted that to happen, but like it's a Christian movie. There's actually a little bit of sexual tension in the book every now and then. It's completely obliterated in this book. The reason why I think Kirk Cameron is playing William Buck instead of Rayford Steele, who was more the star in the book, is because Rayford Steele he never has an affair. He thought about having an affair with Hattie, and that's looking at somebody with lust is the same thing as having an affair in some of these Christian movies and Christian ideals. So he's basically had an affair in his mind, and Kirk Cameron could not be that character. So he went for the second build character in the book, and he just upped that up to be the star in the movie.
Yeah, I'd not seen this movie before I watched it for this show. I had seen the one with Nicolas Cage in, which was the remake of it. I know you're a big fan of Nicolas Cage.
Absolutely. So that's why I saved it for my podcast.
that must have been a blow to you, seeing someone you admire so much playing in such an awful film. Honestly,
I don't mind, because I know Nicolas Cage does a lot of his movies just for the money. I don't think he's quite the evangelical jerk, especially since he's more of a comic book nerd, and like his son, he calls himself goth right now. He's playing Dracula in an upcoming movie called based on Renfield. He's playing like a goth Dracula. Like Nicolas Cage, it was going for a paycheck, so it doesn't bother me at all. Like Christians, if you're listening to this right now, I'll act in your movie for a paycheck. I will say the worst possible. I'll play Kevin Sorbo's character from the last movie if you want me to. I'm perfectly fine with it. I don't. The thing is, I don't have like a God that I'm being blasphemous against when I say horrible things. So I'll sell out my atheism for money. I'm fine with it.
And that's because you have no morals without God.
Yeah.
So we've talked a little bit about the books. Let's talk about the film. And the first thing that struck me about this film, when it opens, we're in Jerusalem, and we've got kind of heavenly keyboard music playing, and then we're directed to the Syria-Israeli border. And the first thing that strikes me about the film is the absolutely appalling CGI in it. I mean, it is, even for the time period, it's bad.
No, I did not realize this movie came out in 2000 for the longest time. I'd heard people talk about the original Left Behind, like Kirk Cameron's a star from the 80s. So it's probably like 80s or early 90s. This movie came out in 2000, but it looks like an early 90s TV show.
Yeah.
And okay, I've never been in the Air Force or anything like that, but there were way too many fucking planes in that scene, right? Like that was like a flock of seagulls going on over there. Okay,
there were way too many planes.
And they're like, it seemed like and they all just start exploding on each other for reasons. And I don't remember that scene in the book, but honestly, some of the book is just bored me to death, where I can't say I retained everything that I read, but that scene did not stick out for me if it happened in the book. It was dumb. He was doing an interview with the guy that had somehow come up with a formula that's going to make food really readily available for people. It very much seemed kind of wishy-washy with that kind of shit, but all this good stuff is going towards his deal with the Antichrist, which he doesn't know is the Antichrist, which if you want a better movie about the Antichrist, watch The fucking Omen.
Yeah, The Omen is a fantastic movie.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's part of the plot of this, trying to unravel why these planes start do what they do. They start randomly firing missiles and blowing all sorts of innocent people up, and then for some inexplicable reason, they just don't start falling out of the sky. I think it's to try and get the symbolism of the kind of raining fire down on Earth. They've got to try and put it in some way.
So you can post hoc rationalize it with what's in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
They even have to do it even in their own movie. It seems like a little bit of a stretch with the scripture.
Yeah. Another point on that is when Buck Williams, the main character in the movie, is doing a piece to camera, and he says the sun is gone and fire is raining from the sky. They're the words he uses, and it's so dramatic. And as you say, it's a post-hoc rationalization of what's expected. They've got to visualize it in some way, and this is the way they've done it. And it just seems such a terrible way of doing it.
Okay, some of my favorite things was when they're cutting to their news crew that he has there, and he's like, he would be there. Where'd they drop the bomb in Japan in World War II? They're
Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah. They're like, Buck Williams would be reporting on scene from Hiroshima. I'm like, then he's a fucking stupid reporter if he was going to do that. Like, if it's before, he's going to get bombed. If it's after, he's getting radiation poisoning. I guess you're just saying that he's a dumbass. I get it. That's just, I don't think that's what the movie meant to be saying. But I heard them like, oh, Kirk Cameron's a dumbass. Okay.
So there are two kind of important things that happen after that scene. One is that we're presented with some kind of beardy, bedraggled type, and I'm not talking about you, Josh, who tells us that war will continue until the end, and that there will be a covenant for 7 years. And then he kind of wanders off into the distance as some kind of wandering desert prophet. And immediately after that, we're transported to the US, where we see an airline pilot getting ready to go to work while his family watches CNN and Buck's report is on there. The next bit is hilarious to me. The pilot makes a comment about his daughter's nose ring and says, "Why don't you just shave your head off, shave your head, and get on with it?"
Is that what you did first? Like you get the nose ring and then you shaved your head?
It's like a slippery slope. It's like a subtle psychological hint at a slippery slope argument warning Christians that they should look Christian. It just seems bizarre.
I thought it was cute though. I did. Rayford Steele is a more important character in the book, and like the whole reason why he's going on the plane is because he's like wanting to have the affair with Hattie, who very strangely it made more sense in the book how she gets the UN job. It doesn't happen until much later on in the book, and like she's been introduced and he just like sees how fucking hot Hattie is, and the Antichrist is like, I gotta get her working for me. It wasn't just like a reporter gave a referral to the UN and they're like, oh, we're gonna take the stewardess with no like political training on at the UN. It's very fucking weird. Like you don't like I used to work in a grocery store. I didn't go from a grocery store to working in the United Nations. It's a very fucking weird jump. Like those are two fucking different fields. I don't care how good of a reference you get. Nobody's going to put you into a position that big.
Am I correct in thinking that Nicolas Cage played the pilot in the remake?
He was Rayford Steele. What I thought happened in that I haven't seen it, but the trailers made it look like he was in the air the entire movie, and it was like almost a disaster movie. So I was very disappointed when I read the book and watched the movie, and like, oh, the plane's only in it for like 5 seconds. That's very disappointing.
Yeah,
I love a good disaster movie.
So earlier on in the film, we get some subliminal bribery where the airline pilot's child, his young boy, is talking about cool things like swords in Buckingham Palace. And when he's asked where he got this information from, he learned it all from Sunday school. And so it's like really kind of pushing this subliminal message that kids should go to Sunday school if they want to learn about cool things. And that I mean, it's absolutely relevant to the story, but they just had to get it in there.
I thought that was very weird because it kind of pointed to the violence that's in the Bible that's supposed to be this great book. He was talking about he wanted like something to impale heads on. Like this is very fucking morbid. Apparently this is what they're teaching them in Sunday school. I thought that was like an atheist kind of slipped something in there into the script by chance. It made the kids say something really horrible that he learned from Sunday school, but apparently that's just fine. They're all okay with that shit.
Yeah. Well, what an atheist definitely didn't slip in, and you touched on kind of symbolism of the number 3 with the 3 cars in the last movie we did. But in this one, the pilot tells his son that he'll be home in 3 days, and that just stunk to me of like the Christian symbolism.
I didn't even think about that part. At this point I was trying to like figure out where it was different from the book, and there was already like a little bit of different. They started out in the plane. Like I heard the author didn't like this version, but he liked the Nicolas Cage version. So like this isn't the movie that he wanted, even though it's like very stupid propaganda. It seems it's the spirit of the book, even though there's like some differences in it. I didn't notice the 3. They get on the fucking plane, and then that's where things get interesting to me. Is he wakes up, the old woman's like can't find her husband, and Kirk Cameron like ask her about it. And then the thing that I would never fucking do, no matter how old and crippled this woman is, she's like, can you go check he says he's probably in the bathroom, could you go check for me? Like, I don't know your fucking husband. I'm not going to go to the fucking bathroom and bother him. Like, hey, your wife wants to know if you're shitting right now. Like, that's just like, I'd say, old lady, wait a minute.
It's not something you'd do. I mean, that is the kind of the thrust of the main plot of, I don't even think it's the plot of the movie, but it's the main thrust of the kind of drama of the movie, the fact that all these people have been taken. But there were lots of kind of the main plot is regarding the character of Nikolai, who is playing and I'm going to use a Islamic version just to piss off the Christians because it's a Christian movie. Al Shaitan is so he's playing the devil, and so he's doing all these
Antichrist the same as the devil? I didn't know that.
I don't know,
the Antichrist
actually.
was something different.
I don't know, because I'm not into all this kind of end of the world stuff. This is something I'm not an expert on. I've no familiarity with it, so I may be completely wrong.
I always thought like Antichrist is because Jesus is the son of God, but he's also God. But Antichrist, I thought, was kind of like more of the son of Satan than although I don't think he is threes off like Jesus does, but he's kind of like the anti-version, so he's the son of Satan as opposed to being the
son
devil
of Satan
himself.
That sounds like a biker group.
It's actually a character in Marvel.
If anybody out there, because I don't know the answer to that, if anybody out there knows the distinction with the Antichrist and Satan, please comment in the comments below the video and let us know, because I'd be very interested. But the main thrust of the story is Book trying to kind of figure out the reporter trying to figure out all these things, and he gets a phone call saying that somebody knows, one of his informants, I gather from the newspaper, knows why the planes fall from the sky, and he's asked to meet this guy at the usual spot. And when he meets him, the man tells him that the entire world is in danger, and he tells Book about the formula and goes into a rant about them having control. All very conspiracy theory.
All very weird acting. Like the guy is very handsy with him. He's very like frantic and shaking. What's weird is when I worked retail, I've been Kirk Cameron in this scene. There was a time when when I was working at a sporting goods store, this guy came up to me and he starts like showing me the right way to fall down. He's like, "You're gonna need to know how to do this if you're gonna save the world," which I'm apparently a prophet. And then he showed me like a picture of a candle on his phone. He's like, "Remember this candle. This is gonna be important to saving the world. You're gonna be very important to saving the world." And I'm like, this went on for like 20 minutes. That was the condensed version of it. But like the important thing is I've been in Kirk Cameron's shoes. I'm gonna save the world from the Antichrist. It's been like 20 years since it's happened and nothing's really happened yet, but we'll see. I remember the candle picture, so I guess we're good.
So we've got the point on the plane. We've had the pilot sneak off for a little bit of bouncy with his girlfriend, and
the thing is, he never actually became the girlfriend. This is very much the Christian view on things, where having lust in your heart is almost the same thing as committing the act. And they made a big point of this in the book, to the point where it got really fucking weird, because he even like later on in the book confronts her about it, and she has no idea. She wanted to sleep with him, but she had no idea that he wanted to sleep with her. And then he's telling her, so she's like, "Okay, your wife is gone. She's been raptured." And he's like, "No, now I love God, so we can't fuck." So that's kind of how she ends up with Nikolai, is because she wants to be with Rayford Steele, who apparently is a dream boat, or I guess it'd be a dream plane. And because she can't have him, she's gonna take her lust over to Nikolai the Antichrist.
Yeah. So we have all that happen. Everybody disappears, and then we cut to a scene where Nosering, the pilot's daughter, is driving, and she comes across I'm going to refer to her as Nosering throughout the rest of the movie.
As a 24 fan, I have to call her Chloe because she has the same name as Chloe O'Brien, who's Jack Bauer's number 2. So she's Chloe for me, but I'll know who you mean by when you say Nosering. Plus, she's cute. I'm not gonna demean her for being in this movie, probably for money.
She comes across carnage on the highway, and cars have lost their occupants. Captain Dad, who's on the plane, realizes that this is happening everywhere and decides to turn back. And at this point, Buck, the reporter, phones it. I kept calling Chuck when I was writing my notes for some reason. I have no idea why, but his name's Buck, and he phones his office and he asks for the man who foresaw all of this happening and tries to convince the pilot to take him to New York.
What's really weird is Kirk Cameron and Rayford Steele, which Rayford Steele is such a wasted name because I think it's an awesome fucking name. It should not be wasted in a Christian movie. They stopped. He helped the pilot Rayford stop a guy from opening up the plane and getting out. Like, you're not gonna rapture me. I'm gonna jump out of this fucking plane. So because he took like 2 seconds to stop him from opening the plane, which would have killed him too, he lets him sleep on his couch. Like, yeah, it seems very like presumptuous. Like, you're a pilot, you should know everywhere that I want to go and get me there really easily. They met a little bit more organically in the book. Like, I hate to say that the book was better because it's more preachy, but it was plotted better, at least without like these human interactions that don't make sense, that are just there to move the plot around. Like, he should never have been sleeping on Rayford Steele's couch. Chloe or Nose Ring should have hit him with the fucking vase because there's a fucking stranger in her fucking house right now. They're both badly written. They're just badly written in weirder ways.
Yeah, and slightly preceding that, I found the scene where if the pilot returns home on his own, Rayford returns home on his own.
Rayford Steele
returns to kind of find that his wife and his son have gone, and we at this point we get a not at all subtle. It's the least subtle reminder that's given to us that it's the faithful have gone, in the form of his wife's cross laid on the folded clothes where she's disappeared.
If you notice it's on some of the passengers' clothes in on the airplane too. There's crosses too, which it's kind of weird that the clothes collapse like against the seat, so it's still be in the shape of them instead of collapsing downward. But they're like all still in the shape of people. It's very fucking weird because gravity would have taken these clothes down a little bit, but whatever.
Yeah, so it's Nose Ring who tells Buck about a pilot that the family know who can help him get to his destination in New York. And when he meets the pilot, when Buck meets the pilot tells him about a story in the Bible where people disappear. And this is the only time I'm going to reference the Bible in this kind of review. But from what I can gather, this is based on a very loose Bible verse in 1 Thessalonians 4:16-17, which says, "For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a loud command, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trumpet call of God, and the dead in Christ will rise first." But that's very, very, very loose. That doesn't match the events of the film. This is, as you alluded to earlier, a huge dose of post hoc rationalization.
Well, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Apparently, one priest understood this well enough to make a video about, and this is in the book and in the movie. He made a video about it like 3 years ahead of time so that he could tell the people left behind what exactly is going on. It very much felt as forced as I don't even like these movies, but in the third Scream movie, a guy that was killed off in the second movie foresaw the third movie happening, so he left behind a video for people to watch. And it's just, this book has been around for fucking ever, and this one priest figured it out within 3 years' time. That I'd at least like to think like there should have been like a library of them updated. Okay, it didn't happen in these 3 years, but it's happened. It'll happen within these next years because there's no timestamps on any of these things. The fact that he figured it out so close to when it happened is really fucking stupid and really it's really stretching the believability. But I guess they expect the people that take these movies to heart not to have a really strong epistemology and question the shit that's going on here.
Yeah, it's we get to the point where there's an amazing part in this film which is a wasted opportunity, and that's where Buck goes looking for answers to people who've disappeared, and he finds his conspiracy theorist friend who first told him about it, who had the computer files, and he finds he's been killed. So he takes his hard drive, which has been secreted in his watch, And while he's looking at it, an assassin tries to take him out but fails. And then we have a kind of weird cutscene, which we'll come back to in a minute. But
one
Josh,
second, I gotta talk about that scene, which doesn't make any sense. He left the assassin left the computer open with the flashing message about the email that caught Kirk Cameron's attention, William Burke's attention. And instead of trashing the computer, he left that open and decided to spy on the house with his gun and shoot it after Kirk Cameron has looked at the computer.
Yeah.
He killed the guy, was obviously in the house, and he didn't take care of the computer until after somebody came in and looked at it. So this guy's the worst assassin ever.
Yeah, and something struck me about that as well. Before I talk about what I was going to talk about, something struck me about that. Was that assassin didn't know somebody was coming to the house. He could have been sat there for months waiting for somebody to turn up to kind of get this information revealed. And it doesn't make sense later on into the plot either, where Nikolai actually takes him under his wing when he reveals all this information. So he didn't need to kill him for having it to start with.
Yeah, his existence is threatened by knowing all this knowledge, but it's kind of like wiped away in both the movie and in the book. They just kind of hand wave it away and he's safe again because he has some good contacts. But it does lead to the there were like 5 pages of book that were actually kind of like, oh, there was a little bit of foresight of an actual interesting thing happening here. And it happens they kind of do it at the end of the movie, but they do it better in the book. And I guess I'll say the book was better. But here's what's happening the majority of the book, as opposed to Kirk Cameron's story. We see in the movie that he reads the Bible, although he reads it very fucking weird. He starts with Genesis, and then he's like in the beginning, and he flips a bunch of pages, and then he flips back again. It's like, I don't think he understands how to like even fake read a book. He's jumping around back and forth like crazy. Like unless you're doing a choose your own adventure, you don't just keep flipping back and forth between the pages when you're trying to read it. It was very fucking bizarre. But his whole story, and he's the lead of the book, is he's figured out the rapture. He believes it. He's trying to convince his daughter Chloe about it, but Chloe's like being closed-minded, which she was not closed-minded very much in the movie. And like, I thought that she was gonna die and was like gonna hammer down for the Christians that she should have become a Christian. Instead, he tells her to do a bunch of other people, and finally he believes. But he's also trying to save Hattie, the hot stewardess, the entire time, but she gets upset because she wants to fuck him, not read the Bible. And then they eventually start forming the Tribulation Force, which over the next 7 years, and this is very kind of glossed over in the movie. I kind of understand why the author hated it, even though I hate both versions. They're supposed to form the Tribulation Force, which is going to be like the group of Christians that fights against the next 7 years are going to be tough. But because Rayford Steele is strong in his faith, he kind of is able to convince Kirk Cameron's character, William Burke, into kind of believing, but he's not all the way there, but they're going to end up protecting him with the power of their prayers. That's all that this Tribulation Force is going to do, is pray really hard at people.
Yeah, it's a whole wasted opportunity. This film, from start to finish, I found it, I'm going to use the word tedious, because it wasn't an engaging movie. It didn't have the kind of grasp that some other films that we talked about, like The Omen, which are based on the same kind of subject matter, had. And they had a real opportunity with this assassination scene. They could have had, we didn't see anything about the escape from the assassin. We just know he escaped from the assassin. We could have had a car chase. We could have had a bit of hand-to-hand combat. We could have had some stunts. And they'd have made things a little bit interesting.
I don't think they have the budget to do any action sequences, but also there really wasn't any in the book either. So in the book, words don't cost much. So that didn't have any excuse. But then again, he gets to one of his other friends, and like he it was weird. They had like the wino lady that got kicked out of the bar. It's the only reason why he survived, because she asked him for some dollars, and being the good Christian, he gave her some money. And then his friend blew up in the car that he was supposed to blow up in. And then the assassin's there at the window. I guess he wasn't watching the whole thing, so he didn't see that William Burke didn't get blown up in the car too, because he's fucking there with Nikolai at the end of the movie, just hanging out. He's a very shitty assassin.
He is an awful assassin. We've got several kind of subplots in this. We've got the thing where the pilot goes to the church and he's kind of once he's seen his wife's go to heaven, he spies his wife's Bible. He feels inspired to go to church. That's where we see the video that the preacher made from 3 years before. He tries to convince Nosring that his mum's in heaven and she should become religious now, which is what you alluded to in the book, which is barely touched upon in the film.
She just at a certain point, she's just suddenly Christian. It barely seemed like they touched upon it at all, where it was like a big scene in the book. Not a well-written scene. I hated how fucking preachy the book was, but it was like a big moment where she had been like dismissive of it the entire time, and then she finally heard him saying it with such conviction to William Burke that she started breaking down in tears and left. And at first, William Burke thinks that she's doesn't believe, and she's leaving in the middle of my ceremony. Whatever they call it, preaching to go be a dismissive atheist, but she apparently left because it was hitting her heart so fucking much that now she loves the Bible, and then she wants to be part of the tribulation force.
Tribulation force. It's just such. It's an equally bad and good name in equal measure. It's just. It's so fantastic a name to choose. It kind of has the ring of kind of action force about it, but for God.
I think so. I think that's the point of it. But we were talking about the priest in the church, and this is where I think this movie is most toxic, is he kind of believed in God. It was more put upon in the book than in the movie. In the movie, he has this very poorly acted, like screaming at God, like I said the words, but I didn't quite believe. In the book, he's kind of like taking advantage of God. Like he'll do shitty things, but then he knows that he can go over to God for forgiveness. But apparently that wasn't enough for him to constantly, like, if you go to forgiveness and you change, you're fine. But if you go to forgiveness and you continue to do the shitty things after you've gone to forgiveness, you're still being a shitty Christian. So apparently he had a belief in God, but it wasn't up to snuff. So he ended up not getting raptured. So I thought that was really kind of toxic, because that's where like other Christians are going to start questioning whether or not they've been Christian enough to be raptured. And it's going to like get in their head the same way that the threat of hell gets in their head. And I really fucking hate this aspect of them. I hate everything, but this is the part that like makes me a little bit angry.
Yeah, there's a bit as well where Buck the reporter is being, and it pains me to use this word, skeptical, where he goes back to the pilot and Nosering's house and he asks them for help, and they take him to the church, and the pilot shows him the video of the pastor talking about the rapture and the end of the days. But Buck says, these things on the video are vague. And
which is true.
Which is very true. But then it's revealed that the video was made 3 years ago, to which he replies that it's impossible. And his skepticism just seems to melt away in a single fucking word. It's absolutely bizarre.
In the book, he's like right on the fence still a little bit, but because he's on the fence, he gets some protection from it, because they don't quite go into, like, we haven't even really talked about Nikolai's whole thing with one world currency is something that I hear in the real world today for people that are freaking out about shit. And like, they think that they're going to get, this is a product of these books. They're going to get a chip or something in their arm or in their head for their one world currency. And like a leader that wants to bring world peace is actually out to be the Antichrist, which is a way that people can't interpret, like we had people saying Obama was the Antichrist and shit like that. Like any leader that says anything about world peace, which is every fucking leader pretty much is gonna say it. If you don't agree with their politics, you can go Antichrist just because of the way this movie puts about is they're fake trying to unite people. So like they sound good, which I don't think he said anything that like compelling. Like everybody's seen him on. This is in the book and in the movie. They're seeing it on TV, seeing the stuff. He's saying, "Oh, he's saying that he wants world peace." Every other leader has said they wanted to nuke everybody. This is a good change of pace. The last president kicked me in the balls. This is a good change of pace. This is not. Everybody wants the kind of things that he's saying. He's not saying anything profound at all. But everybody's like so fucking enamored with what the shit that Nikola is saying, which I really don't understand. Like, book and movie doesn't make sense how they can promote any single person to try to make him leader of the world. They didn't like lay down the groundwork. They just said like he's in the UN now because we like him. He's a good guy. So we're gonna make him we're gonna make him in the UN. We're gonna make him the leader of the world. This is like the Omen set it up better with Sam Neill becoming president and shit like that. Like this was lazy. Like from a writing standpoint, movie standpoint, this is just lazy. They didn't really like I know eventually the books do actually give prequels to his uprising, but it's still, knowing even the barest minimum of politics, you got to know his ascension into power makes zero fucking sense.
No, there are a couple of hints towards it where he is backed by big bankers to start with. He's kind of their protege at the beginning of the movie. And
that's kind of sound anti-Semitic too when they're backing him by bankers. I don't know if I was just picking up on stereotypes or not, but like I caught some anti-Semitism there.
If it is, I missed it. It is entirely possible. But it's backed by these big bankers. The one thing I did notice on the same vein actually is that it's Russian. And it's kind of playing on the stereotype of the Cold War era. I say Cold War era is kind of coming back a little bit now, but mainly the Cold War era kind of thing, that Russians are the bad guys and the Americans are the good guys. So it kind of plays to that stereotype, which it could have been any nationality. It didn't have to be a Russian guy. But he's kind of backed by these big bankers, but also there's a scene later on, which we'll get to shortly, where he does appear to have kind of at least a modicum of mind control over people.
Oh, he absolutely does in the book and in the movie. It's shown a little bit better in the book.
Yeah, I mean, it's only brief in the movie, as many things are in the film, but it's there. So there is a suggestion as to how he's managed to rise to power and convince all these people.
I still think I can understand the people in power kind of like, because he's in direct association with them. I can understand them letting this happen, but there should be people like watching on TV going, that's fucking bullshit. That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's where I'm drawing the line there. Like the people that he's directly doing mind control shit on, yes, but there's been no source that he can mind control people through the TV. They just find him charismatic because he can speak 8 languages and says he wants peace. So they set it up in a way that doesn't account for the rest of the world.
Yeah, so Nikolai at this point becomes Secretary General of the UN. And Book goes to explain his findings to he's got a friend in the UN, and he goes to explain his findings to him, and Nikolai finds out. And this is why the earlier bit about the assassin doesn't really make any sense, because he then offers Book his protection when he knows what his information he's got. Book finds out about the plans to rebuild the temple in Jerusalem. And that's the moment when the light dawns on him that the Bible is right, and all this grand mystery finally unfolds for him. And the UN are the ones behind setting everything in the Bible to motion.
Which, that's self-fulfilling prophecy. I don't find that very convincing at all. Like, the Bible's existed for years. People have been trying to make that temple happen, but they're like, we figured out that it doesn't have to actually go over this Islamic temple. We can build it right next to it, which I still think there would be problems there. But whatever, that's the way they wishy-washed it away. Is that we're building this building like right fucking next to it. It's cool. The Islamic people won't fucking mind. We'll just have our temples next to each other. It's cool.
Well, I mean, we're approaching the climax now of the movie, and we get to a point where the pilot and nose ring pray in the church while there's some cheesy Christian music playing, and we have a cut scene where Buck is praying for the first time in his life because he realizes that he now needs God. And after this declaration, he bumps into Nikolai, who invites him to a press conference, which is the climax of the film. And he says that we're about to turn this planet into a paradise.
This is the one scene I will say was actually kind of cool in the book, but it happened in like the very fucking end. And it wasn't just like this circle of people. It was like a big press conference. Everybody from William Burke's news station was supposed to be there. All the leaders were supposed to be there. Hattie, the stewardess, has gotten the job working for the UN because Nikolai had met her as just a bystander and like wanted her there because she's fucking hot. It was that reason, instead of like, it wasn't just like a reporter wrote a reference for her and she got in. And all those people go in there, and Nikolai starts basically giving the leaders of the free world, reporters, everybody like the same kind of scenario where they're like, yeah, you're basically a leader of this new world. Everybody's getting the same thing, but because William Burke has talked to the Tribulation Force, and like all the puzzle pieces are coming together. He's realizing that Nikolai is the fucking Antichrist, and he's the only one that doesn't get hypnotized by his power, but he fakes it. So when he kills the people in that conference, like everybody around there, they did this in the movie too, but there were more people. Everybody around there believes the story. They said that those two people killed each other, as opposed to him killing them. But then because they figure out that William Burke didn't believe it, and then they changed everybody's memory to say that he never showed up there, even if he gets fired from the newspaper because his boss is like, why the fuck aren't you there? Nobody saw you there. It was actually like the remnants of a good story within the last 5 minutes, and they even fucked up the one good part of this novel in this shitty fucking movie to where that didn't even fucking work.
No, it didn't work at all, and it was very kind of in the kind of movie version of events. Nikolai shoots the people, and this kind of quick scene where it's obvious he's brainwashed someone, and Buck asks his friend who's been brainwashed about the shooting, and it doesn't relate what happened, but what Nikolai tells everybody happened. And it's very subtle. There's no kind of depth to it whatsoever.
Yeah, it didn't work at all. Like, I guess like the room was dark because at the time, because he's doing his devil thing, and they even give him like black and white in the screen occasionally, like just to show, if you don't understand that he's evil, we're giving you him in black and white here. And then Nikolai does this thing, gets those two people that backed him and they wanted him to be the puppet leader. He realized he's no puppet, and he kills those guys, and there's no blood and gore. It's boring. He even makes a joke that Hattie, you better step up back. I don't want you getting blood all over your pretty ass self. And she didn't have to worry because apparently these people don't bleed in these movies.
Yeah. But, the climax of the movie is I say climax, is probably the biggest anticlimax of any movie I've ever seen. And after the fact of this kind of, even for a movie of this poor quality, it's still a decent scene where they're having the meeting, and then Nikolai decides to kill the people he kills. And then the very end of the film, Buck returns to Nose Ring, and we're left with him entering the church and saying that he doesn't know all the answers, but new faith is enough. And it's just like an indoctrinating message it ends on.
He's going to be joining the Tribulation Force now. The problem is this movie is is book one of a 16-part book series. So it kind of like doesn't really resolve anything. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings in that it doesn't resolve its plot. It's just lazily like shutting it off to the next one. It's almost as bad as Lord of the Rings, not quite. And it's lazy. Like you should have like a plot that kind of wraps up but it doesn't. It just kind of lingers on there and is like, we'll solve this in the next movie. And there were 3 of these movies. I hope we don't do all 3 of these at some point, but they had plans. They had plans to do, it kind of ran out of money with Kirk Cameron, so they tried to reboot it with Nicolas Cage. That didn't work. So now they're actually right now they're trying to reboot it with Kevin Sorbo in the lead role.
Oh no, that is not going to be good.
No. So anyways, Richard, is Left Behind the movie a bloody good film?
Left Behind the movie is, I mean, we've done 2 films in this series of reviews we've done God's Not Dead and Left Behind. And as much as it pains me to say this, God's Not Dead is a superior film on almost every level. This is just, and I'm a huge fan of movies like The Omen. I love The Omen. It's one of my favorite films of all time. And this is just there's so much potentially. If you just got rid of the kind of evangelicism of it and made it as a pure horror film, there's some potential with material. But it's that side of it, the side of it that would actually make a good movie, it's entirely cast aside. And it's all the evangelical side of it that's shoved forward. And it fails in so many respects because of that. And this is just, it is categorically one of the worst movies I have ever sat through. And I saw, as I said earlier, I saw the Nicolas Cage version before this, and that wasn't good. But it was far superior to this. This is just a mess from start to finish.
Like you mentioned, there are bare bones that make this that could have been used to make a good movie. I don't hate religious horror, but I'm very picky on it because if you go too preachy, you lose me. But there's like I enjoy Greek mythology kind of things in the same way I can enjoy Christian mythology done in movies. And the Days is fucking an amazing movie. But this, if you want to see this done right, watch Avengers Infinity War because the snap is basically the Rapture, and it's done much more entertaining than this is. I there's some interesting things that could have happened with the economy and like people recovering after a good portion of the world has disappeared, but they don't really go into that in the book. Things go back to normal almost instantly. They show a little bit more in the movie of the world still being a little bit crazy, but it didn't really feel like it in the book. The movie didn't seem as crazy as it should have been. They went into the whole mystery thriller of the one world currency more, which is the boring aspect that shouldn't have been in this movie. It very much should have been focusing on how the world's adjusting to a good portion of the world disappearing. And instead they decided to make some conspiracy theory bullshit thing, which we're living too many fucking dumbass conspiracy theories right now. I'm sick of them, and fuck this movie.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's a fantastic point to end on. We can't really end it any better than that. Josh, you are without a doubt one of my best friends on the entire flat globe. We you know, I've been on your show a couple of times. Laura McGee, my very good friend and co-host of the Skeptic Hangout, has been on your show very recently and is going to be on again. Tell us a little bit about your show before we go and what kind of stuff you do over there.
I mean, it's just action and horror podcast. We do actually enjoy talking about bad movies sometimes. And sometimes we reevaluate some movies that are thought to be bad, like Highlander 2, which has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's fucking amazing. We go all over the map on the movies. we're just fun. I try to force in some skeptic episodes here and there because I do enjoy the skeptic community. It's a very important part of my life. And so I do try to mix business with pleasure on the podcast every once in a while. But for the most part, you can listen to anything and just have a good time. There are a couple episodes where I'd say we weren't 100% on, but I'd say the majority of the podcast, we have a good time, and it's just a good time listening to us. It's like I said, the previous episode, it's just the kind of conversations you have with your friends over beers is all that we're going for.
Yeah. And I've been a big fan of your podcast from the very beginning. I've been
bad at the beginning too, so thank you.
I've been, dude, look at my first episode. I didn't even have a microphone. I've been very, very lucky to have been on your podcast as both a guest and a co-host, which I'm really grateful for.
And we definitely want you back. Our ideal episode eventually is to have you and Laura on together, but both of you are like welcome anytime you want. You're one of my best friends in the world, so like you're definitely welcome at any time. And I appreciate you doing this with me. Like, this was fun. I had a hard time watching these movies. I had a harder time reading the book. It wasn't that long of a book, but it took me like a whole month to finish it just because it was so fucking preachy. Like I said, Rayford Steele's the star, and his whole thing is, all of his conflict is whether or not he can convert people that he wants to convert into Christianity. That's the majority of it is preaching at people, but learning how to preach at them right. You gotta come at them with the right temperament in the preaching.
To come at the temperament.
So that's what the book is. It's very much like a how-to guide of converting people, disguised as an adventure disaster movie or disaster book.
It's been great fun doing these two shows with you, and check out Towhead check out their link tree in the description below. They're a fantastic band. They very graciously allowed me to use their music for my intro and outro, and I've been away for a while. I've not been off the scene, but I've been doing lots of other stuff. You can catch me on Ethan Michael's The Perspective. You can catch me on International Freethinkers We Are Parents as a host on there. You can catch me on the Non-Profits.
I've been doing those.
Josh is a recent non-profit host as well. Yeah, fantastic episodes. Check Josh out on the Non-Profits. So I have been keeping busy, even though I have let my own channel slip behind a little bit. I will be doing more stuff in the future. Josh, thank you very much for joining me. Audience, thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you'd like to see more of this kind of stuff, please let me know, because I am up for anything. If you've got an idea as to where we can move forward, let me know and we'll certainly push it in that direction. Thanks very much, and we will see you all again next time.